You came very, very close in all that travel to being the nominee of your party. As close, probably, without winning the nomination as anyone has come in recent memory. Do you think about that on late nights when you're flying, when you're in a hotel? Do you think about that campaign and think about what almost happened?
You know, being in the middle of a presidential political campaign is like being in the middle of a tornado, and you have only modest control over what's actually going on. And so you can't always control the things that you could have done differently, but there are some things that I would have done differently had I been more experienced, had I...
Do you want to share one with us?
One, we had problems in our operation in Iowa that I didn't know about. Two, we had some management problems in the campaign, but the things that sort of the personal things, I think the most personal thing is I needed to make a switch. When I became the front runner in September, I needed to appear presidential. I had risen to the top of the pack because I was an insurgent and people wanted real change in the country. The problem was that if people are going to elect you president, they have to imagine you in the White House. And I wasn't too good at letting them see the part of me that they would like to see in the White House. The fear was that if I did that, I would lose my base of people who were really angry and really wanted to change and saw real progressive possibilities. But the problem is that the other people that I had to have to win would think, oh my God, he's just down there shouting and yelling and carrying on all the time. So, so we decided to shout and yell and carry on some more, and it didn't
When you
work.
started out, people forget, as the centrist governor, outgoing governor, former governor, who was talking about health care, talking about a balanced budget, and it must have occurred to you at some point along the way that you felt you had lost the ability to define yourself as the kind of centrist, thoughtful governor you had been.
Well, one of the problems was that everybody else was trying to define us as fast as they could, and they were so terrified. When you run for president, everybody wants to be president. As Gary Hart once said, "There's no wimps that get to be president of the United States." I mean, it's really rough. And so, I had 4 people who didn't like the fact that I was in front, and they would do their best to define me in every way possible with the help of interesting journalists.
So point at me.
As a member of a class. So that's part of the rough and tumble too. I think our problem was not that we couldn't define ourselves. I think our problem was that we weren't quite good enough at fighting back in the way that we needed to do that. And one of the interesting problems that we had was we'd started with nothing. As you know, we had $100,000 in the bank or something when we started, and it took off much faster than any of us expected. We always wanted to come in third in Iowa and second in New Hampshire, which we did. Problem is we did it on the way down instead of on the way up.
It's all about expectations.
But part of the problem is as we started out, we had a lot of people who worked really hard but didn't have a lot of experience, because when you have $160,000 in the bank, sometimes it's hard to get people who are willing to take a chance on an untested candidate because you can't really guarantee they're ever going to get paid or support their families or any of those things. And when you're making the transition, it's not hard to run an insurgency campaign based on the fuel and the passion of wanting real change in your country, but it's hard to run the kind of campaign when you're the front runner without the kind of expertise that comes from having been through 4 or 5 or at least 3 presidential campaigns.
Not everybody likes this idea. A lot of people in Washington don't like this idea. They were frankly worried about you becoming chairman to begin with, and now that you've instituted the 50-state strategy, they fear that their fears are confirmed. Explain to us what the 50-state strategy is and why it's important.
50-state strategy is coupled with something what I just told you. If you want a real Democratic Party that's going to be a national party, you've got to be in 50 states. This idea that you're going to run a presidential campaign in 20 states and hope that the math will work out so you win 19 of them and win by 3 electoral votes is nonsense. And to those, my friends in Washington, and they are my friends and we do work together, but the definition of insanity is trying the same thing again and again and hoping for a different result. This is an election where people really want change. Every poll that you have seen or I have seen in the last almost year has shown that almost 2/3 of the American people think the country is going in the wrong direction. So people will vote for a party of change. What they will not vote for is a party of Me Too, because that's not what they want. They want change. The default position is always to vote for the people in power unless we can show them something real and fundamentally different than what we've got today. That's what the 50-state strategy is. We are in Alaska, Alabama, Mississippi, Utah. We've got people on the ground. The DNC is paying for almost 200 organizers in every state in the country. And their job is to make sure the Democratic argument is heard for the first time by people who've been listening to their preachers telling you're going to go to hell if you vote for a Democrat. We can win in these states, but you can't win if you don't play, and you can't be a serious national party if you don't have a serious national message. Because the fact is, this is a democratic country with a big D. We have done so much polling and focus grouping. Most people agree with us on the core issues of what's going on in America and not the Republicans. So it is sinful for us not to be winning all these elections, even in conservative states. It's a matter of not getting our message out, and if you don't show up in the party, in the state, and make any investments in the party whatsoever, that's essentially not showing up and hoping that some brave soul will, on his or her own, win a seat. That happens, but we can do it so much better if we have an organized business plan that is a long-term plan for the success of the party.